are live. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another extraordinary episode of the Extraordinary Exchange Podcast. I'm your guy, Nate Bennett, and I got two illustrious guests. Well, I got a co-host, my man Adam Terrell,
Better known as.
better known as Benz Menzino,
Thank you.
in the building.
Correctly. Yeah.
And we are privileged and honored today to have another illustrious guest, a supporter of E.I.G. It was good to see you at our Juneteenth Black Business Expo a couple weeks ago. Pulled up. She is a serial entrepreneur, I guess I could say. She's been an entrepreneur for a good little while. I've been following her on social media. We've been following each other and just got to meet each other face to face for the first time. But she is a business strategist, life coach, and she's just an amazing individual. Y'all get to hear her story and hear how she's inspiring the entrepreneurial community. But without further ado, welcome to the Extraordinary Exchange Podcast, Miss Joy Cook. What's going on, Joy?
Happy to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Finally.
We've been getting a lot of finalies lately. People are like, man, when am I getting on the pod? But you're here. So here like you never left. So yeah, just get right into it. Share with the viewers, with the world, with the congregation here, who you are and what you does.
Yeah, so essentially, I am a life and business strategist coach, and me and Benzino was talking earlier about the life and business part, right? And so why it's important to kind of distinguish the life and business is because life and business are congruent. There's a lot of things of life skills and life strategy and life tips that flow into business, and there's a lot of things in business that flow into life. So the congruency of them both, they're very important. But a lot of times a lot of entrepreneurs are either focusing a lot on business or people are focusing a lot on life, and finding that sweet spot that kind of brings them both together really sets a person up to really accomplish a lot of things. And even when we think about the life and business strategist part, I spent the beginning part of my career as an accountant. So I was an accountant in business operations for 20 plus years, right? And I'm going to kind of take you back to the start of my journey when things shifted for me. So years ago, probably back in 2011, 2012, I worked for this government contracting company. It was a minority owned company. They did really well in business, and I was kind of like the right hand to the CEO. I did a lot of things from the accounting, the operations, and things like that. Well, he overbooked himself for a conference, and this conference was called the High Experts Academy conference, and it was a conference for CEOs. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Brendon Burchard, but Brendon Burchard was the host of that conference years ago. And I'm gonna tell you a full circle part in a second. But the CEO, he overbooked himself, and this is like CEO of like $1 million company, right? Like, so he's into, a lot of CEOs and a lot of people who are successful in business. They all have coaches. They all go to conferences. They all continue to, invest in themselves and into their business. So he couldn't make it, and he asked me to go as a proxy to this conference because he didn't want to miss out on his money. Didn't want to miss out on the information. Mm-hmm. I go to this conference, which was in Santa Clara, California. I walk into the room, and there's probably about maybe 500 people there. And as I look around the room, I can probably count on my fingers like this how many people of color were in the room, right? And again, this was in more than 10 years ago, when this coaching and this conference and this exposure thing in our communities of color is not like it is today, right? And so when I was there, I gained so much information. It was almost like I was a kid in a candy store, like all this information from business leadership to finances from a different perspective, not as a perspective of accountant, but a perspective of a CEO and an entrepreneur and owner, leadership things, and just a plethora of information. I'm like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, this is it. There was a guy that I got introduced to at that conference. His name is Darren Hardy. He is my absolute favorite. I love Darren Hardy.
You know Darren?
I am a Darren fan.
The author, Darren Hardy.
He is an author. He wrote the book Entrepreneurial Roller Coaster. He wrote the book Compound Effect. He wrote one other book. Yeah. But anyway, me being exposed to that information, I was like, this is it. How come all of this good golden information isn't shared in our communities. How come we aren't exposed to this? And from that point, I just started diving into personal development, professional development, like leadership, entrepreneurship. And I was already like doing consulting work and from an accounting perspective for small businesses anyway, but it just up leveled me. However, came back home, life happened, all the life things that get in the way. And I think this is the entrepreneurial journey, is that there's going to be things that's going to slow your journey down in entrepreneurship. There's going to be things that get in the way. Well, after I do this, after my kids get older, after this happens, after that happens, we put that thing off because we have life that happens. And as life, whatever your calling and your purpose is, it'll always find itself back to your path. Like you'll always find yourself back there. And I found myself back there, and I got certified as a coach. I started diving into all this place, and here I am, committed. This is not, I tell people often, I'm a coaching is just not what I do. It's literally who I am. Like,
I like that. A key part to that story I liked was you got to be prepared for the opportunity. So a lot of times we think we know what we want to do, and as you said, those paths that you want to go down are going to present themselves to you. But are you prepared to take that next step once that opportunity presents that? So I love that story.
And are you willing to do what you haven't done before? And I think that's the part too. So many times in entrepreneurship, we think that we can use the same tools, the same resources, the same ways that we've done to get where we are at this particular point. But if you want to get to the next level, you have to implement next level activities, next level behaviors, next level habits. You have to go to the next level of who you become as a person in order to get to that part. So real quick, the full circle part is earlier this year, I went to a Brennan Bouchard conference. So the first time I had went since a long time ago, and it was amazing. It was called the Growth Day Conference. It was amazing. And it was just like full circle. If I went there as proxy for somebody else back in 2011, 2012, and in 2023, like I'm going to a conference that I invested in myself as an entrepreneur, like in this space. It was just a really, really full circle moment.
That's how life gives you those opportunities. You capitalize on them, and then you see them come to fruition on the back end. So I love it. I love it. So let's rewind from that first initial conference that the light bulb went off for you. How did you decide to turn that into a business?
Yeah. So when I was at this conference, ironically, so I'm a mother of 3 kids. I was a single mom, divorced mom, and in this journey. When I was there, another speaker that was there, I forget his name, but he wrote this book called The Little Black Book of Sales. I don't know how I even got in, how our paths connected at the conference or something, but at the conference, he said to me, he was like, asking me my story, what have you, and I told him. He was like, you should start a blog, for single mothers and tell your story about blah, blah, blah. One, I didn't have the information. I'm going to say something about the information. I didn't have the exposure. We can only expand to the point of which we're exposed. So if we don't have exposure to certain things, there's going to be limit to what we can expand to. And that was my story. I didn't have the exposure, the knowledge, the resource, or a support system that even understood what that means. And this was a long time ago. So blogs were just coming on the scene. I put it to the side, like, I don't know. And it wasn't until just being on this journey of self-development, professional development, and personal development, it led me to pursue more and more. It's almost like when you get into seeing your own self-growth, you want more. You're like, oh, I grew that much. Well, how much more can I grow? And you really begin to realize that the potential that we have as individuals, the potential that we have in business, that we have in our life, that we have for our relationships, for our money, it begins to expand and grow and grow and grow the more that you put the time and the efforts in. So it was just like a seed that was planted. And I nurtured the seed and nurtured the plant over years. I started investing in my own self. I invested for the first time in a coach, on my own personal coach that kind of helped me. And when I started that investment, it took me a while to do that investment because I had to swallow the pill of, the big pill of, that's how much I gotta. But the return on the investment absolutely is priceless. Like it's been priceless. So that's kind of how it started for me.
Internally as a group, I know that's something that we talk about, that point right there about the cost of investing in yourself. with these type of strategies. And I know I'm stubborn. I've always been, I can figure things out on my own. Give me some time and a good internet link, I could figure out anything. And something that Nate always talks about is, no, there are people that have already done that work themselves. So why not pay for it and get that knowledge instead of, and then you already a level up instead of starting at that bottom and learning all the hard parts yourself. So that's something Nate always talks about. Is pay for the knowledge.
It's something with that too. One, coaching and investment in self is new to the community of color, right? The Black community. That's not something that we do. We'll invest in some clothes, we'll invest in some shoes, we invest in a trip, we invest in cars and stuff. But in our communities, we don't necessarily invest in those things. There is no return of investment on anything. I don't care what you get. There's no better return on investment in anything than the investment that you have in yourself. Like zero. I don't care how many properties you buy. I don't care what other Bitcoin, whatever you get into. No investment is going to be better than the investment that you invest in yourself. That's also the biggest challenge that I face being a coach and a strategist, working with primarily small businesses, medium-sized business owners or entrepreneurs who feel like you, Benzo, I can figure this out myself. Why am I going to pay this money to figure it? But the journey is not meant to be done alone. And there's this other part that goes to this is a lot of times we're in this culture and we have this perception that I only want to work with people who've already done it, right? I really don't like that. It bothers me a whole lot because there are people who are trained and skilled, and though they may not have done it, their role may not be to do the thing, but to help you to do the thing, right? And it's even when we think about, so as an accountant, I've managed millions of dollars. Millions. Ask me, am I a millionaire? The answer is no, I'm not, right? But because I haven't made millions of myself, the way that I know how to manage and navigate, and I help those people who make the millions to make decisions, to strategize, to have proper accountancy, to put themselves on how they can sustain and how they can scale. Though it's not my journey, because that's not my walk. You got to realize everybody's path is going to have a different responsibility. My granddad once told me, somebody has to be on the fries, right? So when you're at McDonald's can't operate if only the owner of the company does the operations of McDonald's. The fries are the things that sell the most. Somebody has to be on the fries making the fries. And that doesn't mean that the fry person is less valuable. We may make less money, right? But the value of the effort that's being put in for the fries is just as important as the operations of McDonald's. So sometimes we have to get to that place, and I think it's an opportunity for us to unlearn some of the things that's been embedded in our head from a society perspective, from an environmental perspective, for us to realize that, one, humans in general have trust issues. We don't trust other people easily, and we think that we can do everything on our own. I can put everything on life in it. Nobody's ever done it on their own. When you see all these people that are successful and you see them thriving, that's because they've had an amazing group of people who do the things to execute it, to get to the end point. And as an entrepreneur, you need someone on your team to help you see the things you don't see, to help you even strategize and brainstorm through the thoughts that you may have of things you want to accomplish, to create sustainability, to know how to get to scalability, because you see things one way, but there are 1,000 other ways that things can be. When we are focused on our baby, on our business, and we want it to be this way, we get really stubborn. We get really stuck in our ways of no, I know how to do this. I'm gonna figure it out myself. Well, honey child, you don't have to figure it out yourself. You can have just having a conversation, right? Of what are some other ways I can think about this, and looking at your own opportunities of personal growth to get you to the next level. All right, you've done well for yourself to get yourself here. What do you need to do, and who do you need to become in order to get yourself to the next level? This is where the life and the business part comes into play, is who do you get to become in order to get what you want? It can't be the same person you've been. You got to literally become somebody else.
Not at all. And I know Nate got a whole list of questions in here, but I love this conversation.
Bars, that's what I'm saying.
One point you said that was really important is about the guy on the fries.
Somebody gotta be on the fries, dog. What?
But here's the thing though, is as a business owner, as a leader, you have to find the person who's happy with, who takes pride in their fries.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you make your business complete. You find a guy that understands the long-term nature of, if I learn the fries and I can learn the burgers and I can learn this, and now I know the whole store can be a manager 3, 4, 5 down. You got to find that guy. That's the difference between McDonald's and Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A, the fry guy's happy to be there. He understands this is different. The culture here is different. So because I'm part of this culture here, it's a pleasure to serve you. Even though I'm serving the fries, it's a pleasure to do it.
Do you know, but where it comes down to is that it's leadership, right? All of what I do is really about leadership development. That's what it all comes down to. The life and business strategies, it's all leadership development, leadership within life and leadership within business. And it's the difference between the McDonald's and the Chick-fil-A is leadership. They've implemented a leadership structure that, one, not only supports the vision and the mission of the company growing, but they're investing in their people. How can we get you to grow? How can we get you to attach to the culture? How can we get one? You also have to be the example of that. You can't be an entrepreneur and be an asshole and then expect for people to want to be happy on fries. But if you treat your people well, if you give them accolades and you respect them and you treat them like a human and you treat them like they matter, and you appreciate their value that they give as a leader, you're leading by example. People don't leave jobs. People leave people, right?
Mm-hmm.
People don't go to businesses because the food is amazing. People will go to the business because the service is amazing. How are you servicing your community? I'll give you a really quick story. There was a dry cleaner place, right? Dry cleaner place. They were in business for a long time, but they were doing the same thing over and over and over again. But the thing that kept their customers coming back is a way that the owners like really created this customer centric environment for their dry cleaner. So this dry cleaner owner needed to increase his income and couldn't figure out how to do this. And so he had some advice, probably from a coach, right? There. So probably from a coach to say, hey, here are some ways that you can do this. You do amazing at treating your people well. How about we up level that, right? We up level that. When they come in, ask them if they want water. When you come in, talk to them by name, ask them about their family, ask them about what's going on, get involved and have them create a relationship with them. You create a relationship. People are coming back for the relationship. You can increase those prices 10 cents. They're not going to pay attention to the 10-cent increase because they appreciate your quality, they appreciate your value, and they appreciate being seen, heard, and valued, right? So they're going to come back. When you get that, increase it 10 cents in 6 months. And as you go, and then you increase it to a level that creates that sustainability for you that you need for your finances. And then you still have your customers, and they don't mind paying an extra 50 cents if they know that their quality is good. They know they come there, that you care about them, and that they can always come back, and they know that if they come and say they can't pick up their clothes until the next day, you're not going to sell them or you're not going to toss them. Or if they say, hey, I really need this by tomorrow, because they have this relationship, you're going to put in the effort to make sure they get what they need. And it's win-win for everybody. So
to conclude the analogy, Chick-fil-A is able to sell you French fries, fried chicken, sugary lemonade, and people think it's healthier for you than the other fast food spots. But it's because of the service.
Yeah.
And Chick-fil-A's prices are higher.
And they charge more.
People pay a higher price because of perceived value. And so when we think about value, right? And this is like I know we're talking about a whole bunch of things here, but when we think about value, especially in business, value is a perception that people have. And so when I work with people, and I talk with prospective clients, and I tell them what the investment is to work with me, I don't take any offense to somebody like, I don't want to, you got to pay that much. And it's like, you don't value you enough to invest in you to do this. And even like when we're thinking about value is self-perception. If I go to the store to buy a shirt, and the person that made the shirt, they valued and priced the shirt for $50. That's the value. Their perception of their value for their shirt is $50. I'm going to bring this around to our current day economics as well, right? And then for me, I can go to the store and I was like, oh, this shirt costs $50. I pay $50 for this shirt. The perception value is different, right? On each side, my $50 that I'm spending seems like it's enough investment for me to pay $50. The person who made the shirt has set this value of their shirt being $50. Why do you think that Gucci and whoever else, Chanel, I'm not a label person, so whoever else, why do you think that their prices are so high when they're same people who are making their stuff are the same people who are making the stuff that's at Target, the same people that are making the other stuff? It's perceived value. Now there may be some quality differences, but the quality differences really from a profit margin perspective doesn't have that much impact for them to make it, right? It's still going to be the same, but there's a perception of value, and people are willing to pay $10,000 for a purse or $500 for a shirt, a white shirt, right? Because they perceive that because it has this name on it, it's value. But that's the perception that the world has put on what value is, when we don't put the same value on who we are as people. We don't put the same value on who we can become and what we can do in our communities and all these other things, but we'll floss with the value with a shirt or a bag or shoes or whatever, what have you. Now, I'm not saying like, don't do those things, but when we look at value, you have to look at what's your meaning of value? What is the perception that you've created, and how does this relate to your life, to your business, and all other things when we think about the value of things? I don't know how we got there, but
No, as opposed to being gold, it's easy to look gold plated because I didn't pour into myself. I can put on that label. I could take this trip and post it. I could ride this car and the perception will be that, oh, I'm living this lifestyle, when we all know a lot of people in our community aren't living those lifestyles. And behind closed doors, behind that curtain, it's a lot of stuff going on that they need to take care of. So that's why we have coaches like yourself. Benz, we're talking about coaches. And if you had a high school player coming to you right now, football, let's stick to basketball. We all rock with basketball. And he had a coach, and he didn't want to listen to his high school coach. He had all the answers. He doing what he can do. Would it be beneficial for him to get coached by Pat Riley or Coach Pop? You know what I'm saying? Like, to get that tutelage to take them to that next level. Like, he's good now. He's crushing all the high school students down, but that's it. Like, once he gets to that collegiate level, he needs someone to take him to that next level. So
and it's knowledge from everywhere. So even if you don't agree with the coaching style, agree with the minutes that you're getting, somewhere along the lines of that season, that coach has said something valuable to you that you should be able to take and use in your life. And I think a lot of times we get the messenger, we don't like the messenger, and we lose some of the messages that we can pick up in there oftentimes.
When we're talking about, like, sometimes we don't like the messenger, I think that's the same thing in this world that we're in. We're in this influencer world, right? And the influencer world really mutes the value that maybe some joy in the world, right, can give you just as much value as somebody. I'm gonna use an example. I used this example before when talking to someone. If TD Jakes and I both had the same book, right? A ghostwriter wrote the book, and a lot of ghostwriters write a lot of books that are written. Let's say TD Jakes have a book, and everything in TD Jakes books is because I ghost wrote the book. He just put his name and made it his. If he publishes that book versus if I publish the same exact book, it's going to be because of influence, because who he is, that book's going to go to number one, versus the non-influence, who Joy is, that book is going to have a slow ride, even though the contents of it are exactly the same. And we live in a society, especially with social media and everybody wanting to be an influence and all these things, we are often misled off the journey, thinking that we can only get information from this influencer because of X, Y, and Z, when a lot of times, a lot of influencers, they come up by way of maybe one stroke of a luck or one thing, or their journey has been long. You're just coming in on chapter 37, where you don't realize, or you wasn't there when that person was on chapter 1 and chapter 2 and fighting an uphill battle and pulling this into entrepreneurship, right? A lot of people want to be entrepreneurs. They want to do this thing. I tell people all the time, this journey is not for the faint of heart. You see on the outskirts of people in entrepreneurship, and they're doing that thing, but you don't realize how much work, how much effort, how much pivoting, how much adapting, how much sacrifice that it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. And that does not happen overnight. Just like it doesn't happen for a person to make it to the NBA or the NFL or the baseball, whatever. It's not overnight. These players are playing when they're 6 years old, right? They're putting in work. Real quick, the NBA draft, the Twins that got drafted.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did a story about them. The Twins got drafted, and something that was so amazing to me, because as a coach, it was amazing to me, is that their mother had them create a vision board at 9, right? And I'm not talking about a vision board of like, let's put some cutout from a newspaper on a board. No, I mean an actual vision of that had goals and that had action steps that support the goals, and they followed to ensure that those action steps were executed in order to get the results that they were supposed to get each year from the age of 9. As an entrepreneur, if you had a coach or had someone that you work with, that you can get very clear, you can get clarity on your goals, you can get clarity on what your true starting point is, and you can create an action plan that supports all the things and the goals you want to reach, and have accountability of the frequency and the consistency to get those things, you will skyrocket your outcome, because you're not going at it alone, because you have a path. Without vision, we perish. So if you don't even know what your vision is in business and life, and we should have the same vision and the same tenacity in our own personal lives as we do business. What's your vision for your own personal self, for your family, for your relationships, for your money, for the time and freedom you want to have, and for the life you want to create? What does that look like? Because it coincides with how business operates as well. No, businesses have a vision, they have a mission, they have a business plan, they have a strategy plan. Why do we have all this for our business, but you have none of this for your life? There's some misalignment there. So we have to put in place, how do we get really structured and getting clear, not just saying, oh, I want a house on a hill. Well, you want a house on a hill. How are you going to get there? What are the things, who do you need to become in order to get there? What do you need to shift and change within yourself in order to make it to that point? So
one of the good things about the social media era, though, is that it does give people the ability to reach out and contact the joy. So it's a lot harder to get TD Jakes on the phone, on a call, on an email. But if somebody did a little bit of legwork and came across your book, they could definitely reach out and contact you. So I guess we'll start there. How do you, so as if a business owner came to you with their business, how would you help them? What would you do to help them strategize?
yeah, so a couple of ways. So a lot of times the main point or the main purpose is we have to figure out what the starting point is. And a lot of times people are in business, but they're not really clear, or a lot of times people lie to themselves about what they think their starting point is. So going through and talking with the business entrepreneur or business owner, doing a business assessment and doing a business audit of where you are. And that also includes a life audit, right? Let's really audit like the internal sectors of your business and your life to see where the starting point is, because we can't start. It's going to be hard for us to start from a place that we don't even know what the starting point is, and getting clarity on what is the end result, right? So working through a process of understanding the starting point, understanding the goal or the end result that you want to get to, and then how do we fill the gap in the middle in order to get there. It's about closing the gap to get to your next level. What do we do? What do we have to do? Where are there opportunities for growth? Where are there opportunities that sometimes we are focusing our time, especially in business? A lot of businesses focus their energy on something because it feels good, or they think that it's making money. But when you go back and you look at the numbers, because numbers tell a story. This is where my accountant and operations part come in, right? Numbers tell a story. Are you really making the money that you think that you're making? Does this avenue of revenue create the profit margin that you want? Or do you have this other avenue that you're not paying much attention, but that's where your moneymaker is? When are you taking time to slow down to evaluate the business of business? A lot of people know how to do their business. You know how to trade stocks, or you know how to make hats, or you know how to make cupcakes. But do you know how to do the business of business? A lot of times people don't know how to do the business, and the business of business includes your operations. Are you filing your taxes properly? Are you having good financial management over your finances? Have you completed all your compliance and your requirements? Because there are compliance and requirements that are necessary for businesses. Are you going after the right people? Is your audience the right audience? Like, is your product the right product? When have you evaluated? How do you evaluate, review, assess, and then start that journey over again? So there's a lot of steps to the process, but it all starts by having a conversation to see where our starting point is, and then how do we move from our starting point to fill the gap to get to the next level.
I'm loving the entrepreneur listening to this right now that's taking notes. Like, man, I ain't think about that. I ain't think about that. I'm not even doing this. Like they get so caught up in that busy work of making their social media look pretty or doing all those random activities that's not generating them income, is not letting them grow. And they're like, all right, I need to go and tap in with Joy because she knows what she's talking about.
And the thing is that, look, I've even been there as a business person, like, trying to do all the things that the gurus tell you to do, but there's so many middle pieces that we don't pay attention to. And another thing about small businesses and medium-sized businesses, this is where big businesses win. One, there isn't a successful big business or a successful business that's really doing a thing that their executive management don't have coaching, don't have some other outside. I remember I was in Tampa, and I was in an Uber, and the Uber driver was asking me, like, what I did. So I was telling him, and he was telling me that he was driving Uber. He used to be an entrepreneur and had some things, some business partner did him dirty and all these things. And he was telling me, he was like, can I give you some advice? And I was like, sure. He was like, don't work with poor people. I was like, oh yeah. He was like, yeah, because they don't get it. Only those people who understand the investment in business, only those people who are successful, every successful person has worked with a coach or somebody to help in their development. Your LeBron is not LeBron by himself.
Nope.
You know how many coaches he has? Kobe wasn't Kobe by himself. Jordan wasn't Jordan. What is Jordan's coach? The person who was training him, his name was like Tim Grover. He's written a book or something like that.
Mhm.
Like, all these people work with professionals who help them to perfect their natural skill set. The same thing in business. You have business executives. When you work at a company, you have all these executive coaching, like leadership things that come in place. I used to work at BET. Love BET. Perfect, great place. Great place. I had so many great growth moments there. But working there, executive teams, all of the executives had coaches. Like, every one of them, right? And if all these people are getting successes because they're working with coaches, what makes you think as a small business owner that you don't actually need the same thing? In order to get there, you have to have the investment in that place to get the outcome that you really need to get to the next level. And it's important.
We have some friends that do a lot of team building coaching for executives and companies, and when talking with them, they tell me their speaking fees, and to me, it's like people are paying you that much, and I had to realize over time is that someone sees the value in that. So if like you said, it's professional sports teams, if these Fortune 500 companies see that much value in having you come out speak for 2 or 3 hours and going to pay you that much amount of money, then those people who are already successful see the value in paying this person to come out and get the team built for that day or two. So once again, something I'm learning myself is that uh, the the value is not what you perceive it to be, but it's what other people will pay for it. And so, in a certain sentence, that's very valuable.
Yeah, and I even think, like, when we think about that, all these people who are making all this money, they understand the return on investment. You know what I mean? They understand that if Darren Hardy, for instance, at some point, I'm quite sure his fee is probably more, but he was doing this talk, and he was saying, like, his speaking fee at some point was $100,000 for an hour, right? And he was booked out because all these big companies were having him come in talking to his team because it makes a difference. It's almost like you having kids and you telling your kids, clean your room, get your room clean, eat your vegetables. there's a law of familiarity. The law of familiarity is that within the confounds of being familiar with the thing, it's hard for you to hear from the places that are familiar, which is why a lot of companies and organizations, they go outside of their organization to bring someone in, because that's not a familiar voice. The information lands and it settles a lot easier and faster when there's an outside voice that's not familiar. Can the CEO of the company give the same speech as a speaker that comes in? Of course, he has the experience, typically has the experience and knowledge and all those things. But if the CEO is the one who's giving direction, is reprimanding, is also building the company, that familiarity is like, oh, this is just him talking because of something. But if somebody else says, hey, clean your room because of this, or do your homework because of this, or do this, there's a much more receptive action that'll be taken from that voice that's not as familiar. And even when we think about coaching for entrepreneurs, your own voice is too familiar to you for you to be in a place where you only listen to you. Because in your mind, you've already come up with the answers that you think fit the response of the question that you already have. You're already 10 steps of your own thoughts because you think you know it all. And not saying that somebody else knows it all, but as a coach, I'm not here to make you feel good and make you feel warm. I'm here to make you better, right? So I'm going to ask you the hard questions. I'm going to challenge your thought process. I'm going to challenge the way we're approaching this to see if there's other ways and other avenues that we can begin to think about the execution and how we do things.
Bars on bars on bars tonight, man. Bars on bars. Um, I was thinking, was that John C. Maxwell? I want to say that law of familiarity, for one of my favorite books, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I want to say that's one of those laws. And in sales and network marketing, we used to do that all the time. It was third party validation. So I would tell you information and I know it's not landing. I would edify someone else. They will come on and tell you the same exact information. And because I was like, oh, well, this person is this and that, and we have fun together, and he makes a lot of money, and he's on the executive team. In your mind, you're like, oh, this is somebody important, but they probably just started on the team yesterday. But you're resting on every single word that person said. And I used to sit back like, I said the same thing. But again, it's that law of familiarity, like you were talking about. So how do we, or how do you, being the professional coach and the expert here, kind of break those cycles when you're working with someone new that's kind of stuck in that scarcity mindset? Because mindset is huge when you're talking about entrepreneurship and getting that leadership development and all that good stuff. What are some strategies you use to kind of help people see the bigger picture?
Yeah. So one of the strategies, one is what I call the BS system, right? Stands for your belief system. When we think about our belief system, right, we have to really go back, and it takes one being willing, like, in order to be in any place, you have to be teachable and coachable, right? You have to be willing to have the ear to listen. And one, as a coach, I don't have all of your answers for you. One, I'm not here to give you answers. That's consulting, right? And that's different, though I do consulting, right? But that's different. As a coach, what I'm here to do is to ask you questions to open up the portal to get you to start thinking. Thinking is our pathway to thriving. How do we put ourselves in a position that we can expand our thought process in the way that we look things, and really kind of look at our belief system, our BS system, to really see if our belief system aligns with the goals that we have? Does your belief system aligns with the actions that you say you take? Do your belief system, coincide with the things and who you say you are, what you say you want to do, and how you want to do them? Where's your belief system? And a lot of times our belief system just needs to be rewired. It's just like, we were talking about earlier. It's like those IT skills. Sometimes you need to alt control delete. You need to unlearn so you can relearn. Are you willing to detach yourself from the outcome, right? We talked about that. Detach yourself from the outcome of what you thought things were going to be, and be able to reconfigure and re-image like what's real for you. Because a lot of times we're taking blueprints from somebody else's pathway, right? in order to create our own. But how do you go in? What happened for them? You don't know what their background was, right? You don't know what they face in their life. You don't know if they got inheritance from their grandparents, or if they had some opportunity that you didn't have, or they were exposed to something you didn't expose to. So let's go back to the belief system of what works for you and the things that you want to accomplish. And I am a huge component of self-defining. We have to self-define so many things when we look at success, when we look at like business, when we look at the life we want to create. Let's self-define and create that for you, so you can then begin to create the plan that supports to get to the result that you want, versus trying to follow somebody else's plan that didn't necessarily have the same resources as you, or have some different pathway that you have, and create that for yourself.
Definitely, because I think a lot of times, especially as small business owners, you want to compare yourself to unrealistic circumstances to define your success. Oftentimes, y'all talked about social media earlier. Oftentimes, it's how many followers you have or how many views were on my picture, and you're comparing yourself to Jay-Z or Lizzo or somebody that has millions. So, and those two things don't compute. And so, oftentimes, you have to define not even necessarily the what's success, but what's that next. How have I achieved the next level? What how, to get to that successful level, how can I, what's that medium range where I say I've accomplished something and I'm moving in the right direction oftentimes.
Do you know what's also important? So this is a strategy. A lot of things about strategy and tips, and how do you not just know the strategy, but how do you implement a strategy? And a strategy from somebody's blueprint may be your step 10 strategy, not your step 2 strategy, right? So it's also, when we're talking about social media, I think social media is great. It has its cons and it has its pros to it. It has its good parts and it has its not so good parts. But when we're thinking about that, so many people are caught up on metrics. And I'm just going to bring you into some thinking strategy right here real quick, right? If you have, if I invite you to a dinner party at my house, right? There's going to be, let's say, 10 to 20 people there. Let's say 10 people. There's going to be 10 people there. The strategy that you use in that 10 people environment, which is less followers, right? We're going to talk about this, less followers. You can get to know all the 10 people at the dinner party. You know their name, you know where they work, you know how many kids you have, you'll know their stories, because the environment is smaller, which means it's more intimate, which means that it's easier to create relationship and create connection. And it's a lot about connectivity, right? How do we connect? It's a lot easier to do that at a dinner party. Well, if I then invite you, the strategy you use at dinner party is going to be a little bit different. If I invite you to a party where there's 100 people at the party, the strategy that you use in order to navigate the room of 100 people is going to be different than the strategies that you use at the networking party. You're not going to, most likely, unless you're a super connector, you're not going to know all 100 people in one event at a party. You may get a chance to know a few. And then that strategy of operating that party is going to be different than the dinner party. Now, if I take you from from the party to a college lecture place, right? There may be 1,000 people in the college. The strategies that you use with 1,000 people are going to be different. And so you have to realize, and then if I take you to a Beyonce like stadium like concert, when you have hundreds of thousands of people, the strategy is going to be different. Most likely, you're only going to get to know the people who sit next to you. You might get to know somebody if you go to the bathroom. You might get to know somebody if you go buy some popcorn. But you knowing all the people in there is not going to be accomplishable. Now, if you have people who then, because it's in a bigger environment, can pay for VIP tickets, right? Can get access that other people can have. And this is where the investment comes in as well, right? Taking us back to entrepreneurship. The bigger the venue, the more that you have to invest in order to get the access that you want to get access to. Taking advantage when you have the dinner party, when the dinner party is not the same investment as the audience. The dinner party is an invite. It's an invite only. You don't invite everybody to your house. This is special invite. This is relationship. This is connection. We can come and we can do something different. And because we have a relationship in this particular sector, we can talk about the challenges. We can be more vulnerable. We can open up about the hard times. We can tell our successes. You can't tell those same stories in the lecture hall. unless you've been called on, right? And here's another point: unless you've been called on specifically to share your story. But how many people are being called on in a lecture hall? Out of the 1,000, not a whole lot. So you have to understand which strategies that you use based on the audience and the volume of people that you're around and you're exposed to, and how to pivot from one to the other when you're in different environments and where you are in your level of business and your level of personal development and professional development.
I love this conversation because you are speaking about a lot of points that Nate and I and the other guys in the investment group talk about or bring up in so many other instances all day long.
You know I'm thinking about InvestFest right now. See,
100%. I knew
talking
it.
about Andre,
I got, that's what I was thinking.
That's what I'm thinking
So,
about right now.
so that's and so InvestFest, for all those don't know, the guys at EYL put on a weekend long event where they do a lot of different financial strategies, and it's a lot of it's every environment that you spoke of is there. So you got the small dinner party to the 20,000 person event. So let me ask you then, as a strategist, should one business savvy person walk into these settings with a goal, with a strategy beforehand? And how would one map those out?
Yes, proper preparation favors the prepared, right? And so when we're looking at, no matter where we're going to or what we're doing, when you're prepared, when you're ready, you don't have to get ready, right? So you have to understand, one, this goes back to personal development, leadership development, professional development. When you're in this place and you're on a consistent pathway of personal growth, you understand that, all right, if I'm about to go to an interview, oh, this is a great example. If I'm about to go on an interview, you don't go to the interview. Well, you should not go to the interview if you have not done your due diligence on the understanding of the business that you're interviewing with, right? And it's no different than if I'm going on a date with somebody, right? Like, I'm not going to go on a date with somebody unless I know their name, I know some information about them, I have this, or somebody who is that I trust and has a reputation that I could adhere to will allow me, gives me the comfort to make this decision and make it secure. No different than going me being invited to when I came to you guys' event, right? I did my due diligence to figure out, like, what is this, what's going on, what's the outcome. I asked Nate all these questions, right? Like, what's this going on? So when I come, I understand the environment that I'm in. Why go into an environment blindsided without having any knowledge? You're setting yourself up for the pothole effect, right? You hit the pothole, now you got to bust a tire, you got to bust the axle, you're not prepared, or you mess up the alignment of your car. But if you are prepared and you see the pothole, you can swerve, you can miss it, and then you can put yourself in a better position. We have to position ourselves no matter what environment that we're in. It's like playing sports, right? When you're on offense, you play different than when you're on defense. You got to switch it up in a second. The ball can be turned over at any moment. Can you switch to offense and defense real easily in order to get the end result that needs to be gotten? So preparing in any situation, no matter who you are. And I remember it was Darren Hardy, because I just said I love him, right? He was giving this kind of talk. And so I'm going to plug Darren Hardy real quick. He's not paying me for this, but Darren Hardy does these things called Darren Dailies. And every day, Monday through Friday, he sends out these Darren Dailies, really maybe like 3 to 5 minute, like little clips, stories, or inspirations that kind of help you along your day. One, you have to feed your growth. If you don't feed your growth, if you're not growing, you're slowly dying. But he did this thing, and he was talking about, he was on stage, and this, I don't know who it was, but this renowned like speaker or very successful person was in the audience, like taking notes, like rigorously taking notes. And mind you, he's successful, he's doing great in life, but he's still in a place where just because he's reached some plateau, he hasn't stopped learning. He hasn't stopped taking points, even from a person, that is his counterpart. And I think we have to put ourselves in a position when we go into a room. Have you done your due diligence in order to be in the room? It's not you going into a room and not having nothing to talk about. How do you connect? It goes back to connection. How are you connecting? What's your networking strategy, right? If you're going to go into the room, how do you network? What are the things you talk about? And it's not, I hate when people ask the question, like, what do you do? What school you go to? So just for some insight on me, I didn't go to college like everybody else went to college, right? I was a mom at 19. I was married at 19. I was working a full-time job. I went to school at night at Strayer University. I started at Strayer University when I went to school, but I went to school at night when night school wasn't cool, when Strayer wasn't cool, when if you didn't go to some HBCU or some well-known school, even when I was submitting resumes, it's like you were judged based on this. Now you can take online classes everywhere. Like I feel like I got real quick for for that. But it's like when people ask, like, what do you do or where do you work? How can we start asking questions that take us beyond the conscious just response brain to the subconscious thought process of, tell me what's the best thing you like about your job, or what's the best thing that's happened in your day, or tell me something like what's the lesson that you learned in your journey, or something that really creates some type of exchange, because that exchange is really what creates that connection for us to go for. When we can go deeper into our exchanges in our conversations, it creates a better opportunity for networking. It makes that networking a lot better. And also, when you're in a place of networking, especially as entrepreneurs, how can you add value to somebody else versus trying to take value from other people? Where can you add a resource or be of help to somebody else and it's not a let me do this so I can get this, but when you come from a place of, I want to be of service. And when you're in that, when you take that energy of being in service to others, others will be in service to you. You don't have to try hard for that.
But how in depth? So let me ask you this: how in depth is that strategy? So, for example, you go to Darren's conference. Do you go prepared, saying, "Hey, if I do bump into Darren, I'm going to ask him X, Y, Z"? Are you that specific with that strategy?
Not really, because I'm an overthinker, and overthinking slows me down. So my response would be no,
Okay.
right? But in order to be successful, you have to be a visionary, right? You have to have a vision that you're working towards, and vision is different than what we see, right? Vision is the bigger aspect of seeing a thing. So in my daily life, in my daily practice, I vision myself being where I want to be. I've had visions of myself already meeting Darren Hardy. I had visions of myself being on stages. I have visions of myself having these businesses. I have visions of myself. And when I say I have visions, my visions are so ingrained, they're real to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I live in the vision of it happening before it even happens. The law of manifestation or whatever it is, I feel a certain way about it. I think that it is real. You have to have vision. But when you have the vision, are you having the practices that support the vision to get you there, right? Like, and not just the practice, but are you implementing the things that are going to change your behavior and put you to the position where that vision can become your reality? And we have to look at that. So when going into an event, so if I'm going to a conference, which I'm like a conference, like, give me a conference and I'm in love, right? Don't buy me, you don't gotta buy me a whole bunch of stuff. But if you buy me a ticket to a conference, I'm there, right? But the strategy of going to conferences is, how can I connect with at least 5 people, right? How do I get to know what they do, get to know how I can help them, learn something about them, and give just good energy and kindness to other people? And when you carry that level of kindness and positivity within you, it's almost like a magnet. Like, I don't like who I am. You can catch me at the grocery store. This joy that you see right here is gonna be the joy that you get in the grocery store, gonna be the same joy you get at the gas station. You know what I mean? Like it's who we get to become. And as we grow in our own personal journeys, we begin to develop into the person that we most want to be. And I am very clear about who I want to become in this life. And that's a person who is kind, who is generous, who is vision focused, who, you know what I mean, who is here to make an impact and difference. That's the life that I live on a daily basis. It's a lifestyle. Positivity, when we're talking about the ratio of positivity, right? It's a practice. It's a lifestyle. I don't have to make it up. It's, however, I do want to give a disclaimer. I went through some hard shit. I went through some like who I am, I put in tears and sweat in order to get to this point. Like even in business, it's been tears and sweat and hard times and moments where there wasn't no money coming in. Still moments where there isn't money coming in, right? The journey to get to that place, it's a journey that you take. It's slow. It's a slow process. Many people aren't making it just overnight and all of a sudden they're successful.
Shout out to Nipsey. He said it's a marathon, you know. It's and also you talk about networking. Shout out to I love good networking events too. When you have good connection, I can't stand the surface level, superficial, like, hey, what do you do? What do you work? Or but shout out to one of my former financial consultants, Jason Elias. I've never, ever seen anybody work a room like this. So I got this tip from him. When you connect with those 5 people, connect those 5 people together through you. Be that connector. Oh, hey, you need to meet her. Come over here. Hey, I just met you. You meet them. Like seeing him do that in a room of 100, at least 50 people will know him because you connected them and then they're all trying to connect you with somebody. Like when I seen that, and we used to go to the same monthly networking event. So, and then I just heard him on a podcast like a month ago. And the dudes were just like, oh, I've never seen nobody working. And I'm just sitting there like, yep, that's Jason. So
that's another thing. That's power right there, right? And it's like, when I was saying like, how can you add value to other people? The value may not always come from you, but if you just heard this person and this person do the same thing, connecting them together. Or another tip, and I got this tip from Darren too, right? Is connecting people is when you connect with somebody and they say something, or you make mention of a book or a reference, send them that book. Right? Send them the book, send them a link, do something of whatever you talked about to provide that additional value to other people. And people may forget who you are, but they never forget how you make them feel, right? And so when you can make people feel like their interaction with you it matters.
and books are so personal. I remember every book, like every book that I rock with. I remember every person that gave me that book. Every single one. It's only been maybe like a dozen books I've been gifted over the years, but shout out to Darren Hardy. He's cool. Just generalized advice. New entrepreneur just starting on their journey. Maybe thinking about, do I need a coach? Well, after listening to this podcast, I don't know why they're not just beating down your door so that you can, guide them on their journey. But what advice, new entrepreneur, would you give them starting out on their entrepreneurial journey to set them up for success?
So I wouldn't even say this is just for new entrepreneur, but I'm gonna split this into two, right? So new entrepreneur starting out in your journey, don't be misled by the information that you hear out in the world of how entrepreneurship, you can start a business with $500, right? Like keep your job, create a plan, make sure that you have the funds to invest in your business, because a lot of your business when you start out is going to be a lot of investment and a lot of testing and a lot of reviewing and a lot of evaluating and then starting the process over again. Test when you're an entrepreneur, and don't go at it alone. Make sure that you have the business of your business proper. Make sure you have proper accounting for your business. I don't care if you're making $100. Make sure that you're recording your income. Make sure you're putting money away for taxes. Make sure you're paying all your things that you need to pay, and set yourself up. Don't go fast at it. Take your time and go slow. Create a business plan. I know some people may be like, well, you don't need a business plan. Well, business plan is your direction for your business. And there's a difference between creating a business plan and a strategy plan. Have a business plan that's going to be your bigger outlook and scope of how you want to do business. And then create a strategy plan that supports your business plan, that gives you the actions and the steps in order to get to the levels that you want to get to. Create different tiers of milestones that you want to reach in your business as a small business. So as a small business, as you're starting out, if you want to reach a certain level of profit within the first 6 months, create a strategy plan. Everything should have a plan and strategy and action to go with it, and executing that. And put your armor on, put your armor on, be ready to be teachable, be ready to listen and understand that everybody's journey is not the same. And I'm going to give this tip real quick. taxes are really important, right? Your finances and your accounting are really important. And do not go about listening to these people who don't care about you as a person. And I think this is so important. Like, people people make money by selling to people who poor people who want to be rich, right? Poor people who want to be rich is where most people are making their money, right? Because they want the quick fix so fast, and they want to do what everybody else does. And I'm gonna make this reference to, there was this big push of maybe over the pandemic, like, of tax advice. You can do this, you can get you a G-Wagon, you can write it off, and blah 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 blah. I hate when all this information is shared to the public, because the person with the poor mindset, and I'm not saying that they're poor, but their mindset is poor. Their mindset is in a deficit, that they think that, oh, I can go get me a G-Wagon, I can write off. Well, honey child, one, you have to have the income in order to get the G-Wagon. You have to have the income in order to support the note that you have to pay on the G-Wagon. And if you get the G-Wagon, you decide to write the G-Wagon off this year, that means that you don't have a write-off for the next 5 years of your loan. Like, are you in a financial position that you're going to be able to navigate the ebbs and the flows of business for the next 5 years, where you don't have any other write-offs because you don't wrote off everything? Understand depreciation and accumulated depreciation and what that means for you. Like, there's so many things in business that we don't think about. Understand what your profit margin are. Where are you making money? Do you understand the numbers that your business is producing? If you are not in a place where you understand the I can't say it again, the
Intricacies.
yes, thank you. Thank you. And if you don't understand it, like, this is a great time for you to educate yourself. The mindset of an employee is different than a mindset of an entrepreneur. And oftentimes, people that are coming from employee to entrepreneurship, you still have the employee mindset. And that employee mindset is not going to get you the results of being an entrepreneur. So you have to be able to shift and to grow and to learn in that space. And then the other part is, even entrepreneurs who may have been in business, who may have been doing their thing for a while, don't get stuck because you've made some level of success that you think you are beyond the point of help, or beyond the point of somebody else kind of getting on the journey with you. A CEO has a COO, has a CFO, has a CMO, has all these other people that have skill sets to help the goal of the business reach it. If you're in your business and you've been doing well, but you're, let's say, over the years, what's your increase in business? Like, what's your sustainability? And if you create some sustainability, understand what's your goal in business, and do you want to scale, or do you want to stay the same? What are what else, or what else can you do? Are you in a place where you've been making the same amount of money for 5 years as an entrepreneur? At what point do you want to give yourself a raise, right? And giving yourself a raise is looking at your business from a different perspective, so you can grow it to the next level, so you can get there. So I say, no matter where you are in business, no matter, and even if you are a person that's within a business as a leader, that leadership, those leadership skills and the coaching still is beneficial to you and where you are, so you can support your team, you can develop yourself as a leader, and you can add value and really set yourself apart within your organization as well.
Great, man. All I gotta say is, Nate sent me your information. Well, that's about a couple months ago. Um, so, I've been following online. Saw you on the podcast schedule, and I was not prepared for the amount of value that you provided there. I really appreciate the conversation. Like I said, you touched on several pain points that we have in our business and things that we have issues with and that we trying to work on ourselves. So I truly appreciate it. It was definitely a enlightening conversation we had today. If somebody else wanted to catch up with you, how would they get in contact with you? How would they find you? Or where can they follow you at, and all that type of good stuff?
Yeah, so I could be followed on all social media platforms at Inspiring Joy Inc. That's Inspiring JoyInc. I can also be reached by email at hello@inspiringjoyinc.com. And probably the best way is social media. It's just easy and makes it simple. And my calendar is always open for, just if you want to explore the possibilities of what coaching means for you. And I like to say that I don't work with everybody. Everybody is not my client, and I'm not everybody's coaches. So it's very important for us to have a conversation to understand where our compatibility and where our alignment is, because I think that I want to add value, and I'm not going to take value away from you if you're not the right person for me, and I want you to get value from I serve. So it's a mutual beneficial conversation that we have, just to ensure that we're on the right path to get you to the results that you really want to get to.
Cool. Dope.
Even if it's not me, work with somebody.
So would you recommend in that scenario? Would you recommend somebody else? Would you send
Absolutely. If I'm not able, if I feel like that the alignment of a connection doesn't fall into where I can add value, then I have I like to be a resource and a connector. I have tons of resources and tons of connections that other people may be able to serve and help at the same time.
So it sounds like to me, all the business owners out there, everybody to tap in with Joy one way or another, and get a little bit of her information. If it's not the best one for you, she'll find somebody for you. So
look, it all starts with the conversation. Let's just start the conversation, and at least for me, it's really about building the momentum. And when you were a kid, you had the little salsa where you had to get around and you had to run around it. Like sometimes you just need the momentum to get built in order for you to get the trajectory to enjoy the ride. And even if you're going to talk to me, if you have a conversation with me, you're going to get momentum. Like it's just what I do, right? Like it's just what I do. You're going to get the momentum, but then what do you do? What are your next steps and your next action, and what things can you take from that conversation to keep the momentum going?
Talk that talk. So you're gonna get momentum naturally. I mean, you just gonna get it. Joy, we do appreciate you. Thank you very much for being so gracious with your time, with your information, with your value. That's where we said value at least 50 times on this podcast tonight. So again, everybody that's listening, to all the Extraordinary Exchange podcast listeners, tap in with Joy. Tap in with us, Extraordinary Investment Group. We're 12 Black men trying to add value to the world, like Joy is as well. And we'll catch y'all on the next episode. Appreciate y'all.
Holla.
Peace.
Thank you.